Sick, but it's not COVID. Well, great, but your coworkers still don't want your cold or flu. How a pandemic changed our perspective on being sick at work. DNA tests can take months, a long time for coroners to wait to find the family of someone who's died. It's truth test season again. First up, an ad casting blame for this state's fentanyl crisis. We remember the Coloradan who was an essential and unseen part of Star Wars. And May in Colorado means your snowman can go right in the pool with you. It's weird, but so's this show. This is next. You know, if we're smart about this, we can take some of the tools that we learned during the worst of the pandemic, minus the real pain in the butt stuff, and we could stay healthier as a result. Our Katie Eastman is talking about those days when, you feel a little under the weather, but still want to work, like she is today.
Here I am, back in my makeshift home office. But I don't have COVID. It's likely some other kind of virus. That pesky cold we used to get all the time and infect our colleagues with. UC Health infectious disease doctor Michelle Barron remembers those days.
Think back to the way we used to behave when people had colds.
And I'm guilty of this, of saying don't worry, it's not COVID. But I don't want to give it to anybody else either. No one else wants the other thing I have. You know what that saying?
Yes, absolutely. I think I get the exact same reaction. Oh, I don't have COVID. I'm like, yeah, and you got something nasty, don't come over to my house.
So maybe it's time to shift that mindset of knowingly getting other people sick, especially when the pandemic forced us to get familiar with how not to spread an airborne illness.
If you have a cold, symptoms, flu, whatever it is, even if it's not COVID, you can give it to other people. So maybe staying home is still a good idea, or masking if you have to go into work and preventing that spread to other people.
Eventually, Dr. Barron says when there's more baseline immunity for COVID-19, we'll look at respiratory illness season with COVID, colds, flu, and RSV all lumped together and fight them in the ways we know how.
It'll be just respiratory season like it's always been. It's just we now have more players with names that everybody is aware of.
For next, I'm Katie Eastman.
Dr. Barron told Katie that they are not seeing seasonality with COVID-19 at this point. Dr. Barron said testing and quarantine remains the plan so you can avoid getting other people sick. Colorado's Democratic Governor Jared Polis confirmed today that Coloradans will be getting at least $500 in tax rebates this summer, maybe more depending on the state of the state's finances. The governor signed the bill allowing for the early refund. These are the typical refunds that are required under the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. But Democrats and a few Republicans in the legislature voted to send the tax rebates out early so you will get them before Election Day. The state originally said that everybody would be getting $400 per taxpayer. That number is now estimated to be $500 because the state underestimated income tax collections, underestimated April by $1.2 billion. So the number you receive could continue to go up depending on how much income tax is collected this month. Politics guy Marshall Zellinger has a secret weapon. Not his spectacles. There's nothing secret about the specs. I'm talking about his truth tests. He breaks them out every year when the political ads hit our air, making claims that we cannot always trust. We kick off our truth tests for the year with a Republicans ad casting blame for the fentanyl crisis.
I'm back! Because in 2 weeks, you're getting ballots for the June 28th primary. And the race to be the Republican nominee for the state's new Congressional District 8, covering Adams and Weld counties, has 4 candidates. One of them is Republican State Senator Barb Kirkmeyer.
Woke liberals are killing Coloradoans, and Republicans help them to do it.
She started this ad online a couple of months ago. Now it's on 9 News.
Deaths are on the rise because soft-on-crime Democrats decriminalize fentanyl, allowing drug dealers to walk free.
Whoa. There is a lot of inaccuracy in this statement, but one part is true and backed by statistics. Fentanyl deaths are on the rise. According to the state health department, which is not yet done compiling data from last year, there were at least 905 fentanyl-related deaths. In 2020, 540. 222 the year before that, and in 2018, 102. Now to the inaccurate parts of the claim. First, Democrats did not decriminalize fentanyl. In 2019, the state legislature passed a bill reducing the criminal punishment for possessing 4 grams or less of fentanyl. Reducing possession from a felony to a misdemeanor was not decriminalizing, it was still a crime. Also, it's inaccurate to simply say Democrats. The 2019 bill became law with 9 of 40 Republican lawmakers supporting the reduced penalties, and 6 of the 60 Democrats voted against changing the law. That was 2019. Not even 2 weeks ago, the state legislature passed a new bill, not yet signed by the governor, which will make it a felony again to possess 1 to 4 grams of drugs with fentanyl. Let's go back to the ad.
Allowing drug dealers to walk free.
That is not true. The 2019 bill reduced penalties for fentanyl possession, not distribution. And this year's bill actually increased the punishment for dealing drugs laced with fentanyl, especially if the user of the drug dies. Kirkmeyer's ad ends by saying she'll put an end to it. She's running for Congress, which does not have the power to change how Colorado punishes possession of fentanyl. She is a state senator, which does have that power, and she voted no on this year's bill. She posted on social media saying that it wasn't going to reduce the deaths.
So this is interesting. Obviously, she knows that this is an issue that Coloradans care about. She's positioning herself as somebody who can do something about it as she moves from an office where she can do something about it to an office where she really can't in Congress.
Right. In Congress, they can dictate how severe a drug is considered, and at the state level, you can dictate how severe the punishment for that type of drug is considered.
Gotcha. Marshall, thank you for the first truth test of the season. The Republicans running for Colorado governor want to do some things differently. At a debate this weekend, Greg Lopez revealed that he would not pick a running mate who is Jewish, Muslim, or an atheist.
Choosing your lieutenant governor is one of the most serious decisions that a governor makes out of the chute, a candidate. So I'm looking for someone that not only believes in my Lord and Savior the way I do, but also that will take over. Should something happen to me, because really that's why you're selecting the lieutenant governor, is that if something should happen to me and I'm not able to fulfill my term, that they are able to carry on the agenda that the people truly embrace.
Lopez talks himself into some tricky territory, whether it's on a Christian religious test for his ticket, homophobia, his plan to get rid of one person, one vote. His GOP opponent, Heidi Ganahl, takes the opposite approach, saying far less about what she would and would not do as governor. Here's what Ganahl said when asked which state departments she would eliminate as governor.
I know which ones I would put my laser on and diminish at least or reduce the size of, and that's public health and transportation.
There was not much detail beyond that. We hope to be able to ask Ganahl about her plans to reduce the state transportation and public health departments. Ganahl and indicted Secretary of State candidate Tina Peters are the only candidates who have not agreed to an interview here. As we keep trying to schedule that, you can watch our interviews with the other GOP candidates on the primary ballot on the next YouTube channel. It's a sign that's under scrutiny on the big stage. The Republican debates over the weekend were sponsored by the group Greeley Republican Women, but the big banner behind the candidates spelled it Gree, which sounds super fun, but is not the name of the city. So quick, fix it. Greeel. What, guys? That's still not how you spell Greeley. You had one job and 2 chances. Mistakes happen. It's not a big deal. Which is why I'm really glad that this was not a Democratic Party event that could not spell Greeley. Because you know, if the Democrats had done this, we would have heard a week's worth of manufactured outrage about how disrespectful the misspelling was to rural Colorado. The kind of manufactured outrage that's so flimsy that even the people who are paid to peddle it don't really believe what they're saying. Thankfully, the folks who brought us Gree are the Colorado GOP. So it's just a harmless typo. You know that Coloradans famously love animals. That's why other states' shelter pets are brought here so that they can be adopted. And dogs and cats get the vast majority of the charitable contributions for animals in our state. It means that horses are sometimes left behind, but not with you all. Last week's Word of Thanks micro-giving campaign raised nearly $43,000 for Colorado Horse Rescue. They save horses that are being surrendered or are in danger of being sold to kill buyers at auction. Your generosity will allow that nonprofit to save horses' lives and help them find new homes. So who do you think could use our help next? You have raised $9 million and counting. If you have a suggestion of a great nonprofit anywhere in Colorado that could use our combined support, email next@9news.com. I read each and every one of those emails.
The Denver coroner's getting a new tool to help them bring closure to families who have lost someone and may not know yet. And he made a career out of being a little,
Colin just was certainly different.
That genius was on display in some of the biggest movies in cinema history. We remember the Coloradan who helped Star Wars take flight. Next.
Denver's medical examiner, the coroner, is hoping to bring closure more quickly to more families with the help of a new DNA processor. The department's getting a FACT grant from FEMA and Homeland Security to get an in-house rapid DNA processor. They've got $385,000 to work with, and they're considering a couple of different options, including ones that can plug right into online DNA databases, like the ones used to build family trees. This is strictly going to be for times when they are unable to identify somebody through fingerprints or dental records. Right now, in those cases, the medical examiner in Denver has to send samples to the Denver Police Crime Lab or another outside lab to get a positive ID. This would allow them to do it in-house and get results in hours as opposed to weeks. And there's a potential cost benefit. If the coroner can identify somebody, there's the possibility that the family will pay for the burial instead of taxpayers. And then
I can't fathom not knowing what would be happening to my family member if I was somehow estranged from one of my families, a sibling or even an aunt or an uncle, and to be able to know that, to at least find out that they had passed away and be able to move forward with my family. I think that would be a huge deal.
the hope is that once this machine's bought, the Denver coroner will be able to start using it by the end of the year. And they said that they are willing to share the technology with other agencies in nearby counties and states to assist with identification if they have that need.
A little sunshine today, but more cloud cover than sun. Temperatures will warm, though. How about 61 in Denver? We're trending the other direction tomorrow with the center of circulation that's going to set up in east central Colorado. There's actually a pretty good chance of showers both tonight and tomorrow, so don't put the jacket and umbrella away yet. Most of the rain tonight is in southern Colorado and along the Front Range foothills, where some colder air is mixing in. The snow level about 8,500 feet. Scattered showers tonight, a better chance of rain tomorrow as this little center of circulation winds its way over eastern Colorado. Once the system rolls out, it's sunshine and warm weather. 70 Wednesday, low to mid 80s Thursday, Friday, and nice looking holiday weekend with maybe a few thunderstorms on Sunday afternoon.
Quite the little snowstorm that we had over the weekend. Hope that it did not do too much damage at your place. If it did, there are cities and counties opening up drop-off locations for tree limbs and other debris. I was out there at 1 o'clock in the morning on Saturday knocking snow off of trees. If you reached out with a mess, we can help. Jennifer asked where people can take tree debris in Centennial. Jennifer, Centennial tells us they're going to have a tree limb drop-off location on Wednesday, 8 to 5 at Centennial's Eagle Street facility. You do have to show like an ID or something, proof that you live in Centennial. In Denver, you can drop off branches and yard debris for compost at the Cherry Creek recycling drop-off. There are restrictions, though. You can't drop off anything that's longer than 4 feet, thicker than 4 inches. So you got to break this stuff up. You can't drop off any bundles that weigh more than 50 pounds. You can only drop off 10 branch bundles a week. Listen, they're not looking to become a landscaping service. They want to help you if you had storm damage. Other cities' locations are in this article on 9news.com. Understand that the cleanup over the weekend was annoying. It was not how you wanted to spend your time. I don't see anybody, though, quite as put off by the process as Jared's dog, Bogey, sitting there clearly perturbed by the fact that the family's Subaru is loaded up with trees as opposed to some kind of dog-friendly weekend adventure.
The original Star Wars films probably don't happen without a Colorado.
While George was looking for a studio to work in, this was before he even had anything to start out with, Colin was designing the very first ships for the movie.
We remember a Hollywood icon whose name is not well known, but I would bet you've seen his work. Next.
He had a fascination with outer space and an interest in architecture. Colin Cantwell combined the two and ended up in Hollywood, designing the X-Wing, Death Star for the movie Star Wars. Cantwell passed away over the weekend at the age of 90. Photojournalist Byron Reed sat down with his longtime partner to talk about an extraordinary life.
Well, he was deeply into space most of his life. I am Sierra Dahl, and Colin Cantwell and I have been together for 24 years. Colin is probably one of the more unusual people in this world, and that not just from my perspective, but from the perspective of everybody that knew him. But his passion has always been the space, ships, and outer space in some fashion. And that's where he ended up with a lot of the films that he was working on. He was invited to work on 2001: A Space Odyssey in 1968, and he worked with Kubrick at nighttime, designing the space scenes.
And we're getting a picture on the TV.
He had a lot of projects with NASA, including sitting behind Walter Cronkite on the first moon landing, where he was telling Walter what was going on. He had a comm line between the astronauts and the NASA. But that is Colin and George Lucas. And after Walter Cronkite, he was working with George Lucas on Star Wars. These are pill bottles on the back of the X-Wing. So he built the very first models from the movie.
Look out!
And the Death Star fight scene. He worked on the movie War Games.
19 degrees past apogee.
He was invited into NORAD to see what it was, and then he created the whole set for War Games and then programmed all the screens, the war screens in the war room. He ended up with a job at Hewlett-Packard up in Fort Collins, and that's one of the reasons he came here. He passed away 2 days ago on Saturday, and he had dementia. And he had it for 8 years. And he had a peaceful ending. Funny, a wonderful, personable, sweet, creative genius, and people loved him. Everybody loved Colin.
Life of impact and creativity. So we had, 90 degrees and snow, then back up to 60s, made for kind of a weird weekend. Glad at least one of you spent it by the pool with your snowman. That and your feedback next. The most Colorado thing we saw today are a couple of May snowmen in Colorado. Jennifer's son Luca built a snowman at their house in Westminster on Saturday. Luca just started summer break, as one does, by building a snowman. Lisa's daughter Scarlett was living the dream, lounging in the pool with the snowman she built at their place in Cherry Hills Village. It is a good thing that snowmen can't get a sunburn. I know Scarlett's probably figured out what happens by now. Send us the things that just say Colorado to you, like a snowman in the pool in May. Email next@9news.com or get our attention on Twitter with the hashtag HeyNext. Kaylee writes in tonight to say, thanks for the Word of Thanks campaign, especially supporting horses. This is the $43,000 you raised for Colorado Horse Rescue. Kaylee says they deserve so much and often get so little. Thanks for the positivity and the light you shine on these causes. So where to next with this? I'm sure there's some wonderful cause in Colorado that has never occurred to me or the other folks working on the next team, and we can help them out together. You've seen it now, 102 weeks of campaigns in which you have shown up for our neighbors. We just want to know who needs help next. Aurora City Councilwoman Danielle Jurinsky wrote in about the misspelled banner at the GOP debates over the weekend. Said, I hope they're able to laugh at themselves because that's funny. As we all know, if you can laugh at yourself, you will never cease to be amused. Special hello to all of our viewers tonight in Greeley. See you next time.